That was his word. So I don't know if he was working or what, but. Yes, you can take notes. There's apps for that.
I have a slate.
Yeah, I have that right here.
If you, my recommendation, if you're ever gonna take notes on your iPad or something, is there's a free app out there called Evernote.
Oh, I love that thing.
Yes, go get that, because you can, organize your notes much easier than you can in, the regular.
Well, I think maybe I'll get that one, but for now.
Nope, you can take notes that way, and then, you could do notes however you want, and then actually the nice thing is, with Evernote, you can, copy and paste things right into it. Let's see if I still have it on my Google Chrome. I think I uninstalled it on this one. But, the neat thing, there's two really good, if you ever wanted to do a note-taking app, Evernote and OneNote, if you can get the student version, is really good because they come with what's called web clippers. So what you can actually do is if you're on a web page, you can actually go and clip that web page into your notes. So if you ever if there's an article you want to read later or an article you want to save, you can use Evernote, you can clip that. It runs both not only on your iPad, but it runs on your computer, runs on your phone, and so does OneNote. I've used Evernote for a while now, but the chapel's switching to the Office 365, so I've been the last couple of weeks testing out OneNote, and it seems to be pretty good. It does pretty much the same stuff. So if you're looking for something that way, and I don't know if I've got it open on this one or not. I might. OneNote and Evernote both, you can create these tabs. So this is my leadership tab, so I can create these different things about different books. You can even paste into this a word processing a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, or anything like that. But I've got it. The only one I have loaded right now is my leadership one on this computer. But it allows you to create different, which is pretty cool. So I would highly recommend, if you can, start learning to use one of those because they'll help you when you get to college and stuff. Especially for some of you guys, you're what, sophomores, juniors, and we have a senior next. Junior? Sophomore. Freshman. You're a junior?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore, okay, so we have a mix. So if you, so if you want to use something that's pretty good, I would highly recommend those. They work really, really well. I'll leave Alex is over here, not sure where he's going to sit. So we should be all caught up on grades. Yeah, and if you get out this week's homework, we'll do that.
It smells really good.
Sorry, we got French fries.
I like mine.
And,
I love it. Smell.
okay, this week's homework,
I like the little.
Thank
You want
you.
something now or later?
I'll take it later.
I love the little.
Homework?
I think we were doing that.
Yes. That's the only thing I didn't get to grade over government.
You were on
Oh,
vacation, like a woman's
Well, not
class or
really.
something, and I was like, one question I was.
Did a one-day trip to Fort Walton.
With girls, so no.
Visit my wife's family, which was fun. was good.
Be careful.
We argued politics and watched football.
Okay, why are we so?
And it can't get any better when Detroit wins and it's in first place. At least I have one winning team I can root for.
My Redskins hat at my cousin's house.
And they got beat.
And they did.
Bad.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, really quick funny story.
Okay.
So like, I don't know anything about football at all. Like, at all.
It's like soccer, but you hit people.
Okay, that's literally how my friends at church explained it to me, and I was like, that's
What?
not. Yeah, and I was like, that's not, like, it doesn't work. And so then they explained it to me, and I was at my uncle's house on Thanksgiving, and the game was on, and I was like, okay, I think I can figure out what's going on. And nobody, like, in my family, other than my one uncle, like, really cares about football that was there. And so I was watching it, and I was like, oh, that was, like, really good, because I was cheering for not the Redskins.
Okay, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, I
America's
heard that.
team.
Day I was watching them. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
Well, last time you get a ride.
just because my uncle was cheering for them, like, because I don't really care, so I just. And so I was like, oh, that's really good. And I was trying to explain it to my dad, and my uncle was like, how do you know so much about this? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I explained like football, and I explained it in 5 minutes, and I was like, he was really impressed. I was like, I should do this.
It's actually fairly a simple game, but it's also has some complexity, so you gotta learn the rules. But
Yeah.
same with soccer. If you know soccer, you can enjoy watching soccer because you see what's going on.
I have
Yes.
a current event.
You have a current event?
I do. It's actually like current like
Okay,
happening
cool.
right now. So there's a shooting at OSU.
Right.
Like a really bad one. And so my boyfriend's sister goes there and she's hiding in a classroom right now with like 45 other people.
Mass shooting at Ohio State, but actually they found out it actually was a machete attack.
Yes.
It wasn't actually a shooting.
It wasn't one shot.
I don't think so.
There was one shot. I'm pretty
Was
sure.
there?
One of the
Teachers who said the shot.
no, it was the professor.
Oh, just
A professor was shot?
With the machete, not the.
I know there's one person in critical condition. So here's what I heard what was going on in Ohio State, and they were playing it while I was setting up the room this morning, is somebody pulled the fire alarm at the building, people evacuated. When people evacuated, they were there for a few minutes and then they started to head back in. Somebody used their car, rammed into the crowd with their car, then got out and attacked people with the machete.
Yes.
And then, but the belief is that the one person that is dead is the attacker. The other thing that I heard was that the police took into custody 2 individuals that were in a parking garage and took them into. So, yeah, be paying attention, and find out. My guess is it's got to be a Trump supporter. Had to have been a Trump supporter that did all this. I'm just kidding.
I guess we're
It-
living in Michigan people.
That's what I thought too. That's my first. Oh, must have been a Michigan fan. They're really upset about the loss.
I don't think so.
Which was, of course, again, that was a good game
That
too.
was a good game.
I am not going to college if that happened.
I want to go next year.
Okay, there are, anybody have an idea how many colleges are in the United States?
Oh,
In the United States. Oh, no.
Yeah, a lot. And how often are there shootings on campuses?
wow.
Not that often.
So this is great.
It's just like the same thing, you know, here's the thing. And actually, this is one of the topics that I wanted to talk a little bit about today, is how the media distorts stuff. Look at the protests that were going on against Trump. We've got all these students that are upset, and oh, you caught it on your,
Oh, I did.
yes.
That was really scary.
All these protests that are going on and the things that are happening, you know, on the campuses, they're all afraid. In fact, I heard one interview, this one professor, he gave his students off. Of course, he's from Southern California. He's all upset. And he, of course, identified himself immediately. He said, yeah, he's a gay man. And it's like, okay, why do you have, who cares? I don't care. I want to know what your opinion is. I don't care who you sleep with. So, yeah, I know, that's, well, I mean, isn't that what he's really telling you about? Said who he prefers to sleep with is when they say, they say, I'm a lesbian or I'm a gay man. It's like, really what they're telling you is, this is who I sleep with. And it's like, really? I don't care. I really don't care. But he, of course, decided that he needed to give his students time to reflect. And so he called off his class the next day, his statistics class. And, so that the students would be able to have some time to reflect. And some of the students showed up and they talked about it, had a therapy session. But the thing that irritates me is how the news media's portrayal. He talked to some of his graduate students who are getting their PhDs, and most of these guys are from foreign countries, and they're all now like worried about, well, I don't know if we want to stay and get our PhD here or whatever. And it's like, what? Trump has never said he's going to go through and throw all the PhD students out. He's only talked about illegal aliens. So if there's nobody here, if they're not here illegally, then why would Trump even care, right? But yet the media portrays it as that Trump is totally anti-immigrant because he's against illegal immigration. And this is how the media distorts things. Watching the news for this shooter, it's so interesting too how quickly it's an active shooter, and it's, and the news media starts speculating about what he is, who it is, how did it happen, why did it happen, blah, blah. Oh, we better find out why this happened so we can prevent it. You can't, in a free society, you cannot prevent these things. If you want to be free, then you need to be aware that people are going to break the law. But one of the things that the media likes to portray is that college campuses are unsafe. College especially for women, especially for blacks or immigrants, because there's racist people there. And you will find that almost the way the news media portrays it, every girl gets raped that goes to college, which again is not true. Rape doesn't happen that often on college campuses. It happens very infrequently. There's a lot of stupidity on college campuses, I would say that, but not when it comes to the rape. In fact, actually what you will find more so of is like in, on Akron U, if you walk in certain sections of the campus, because it's a downtown city campus, you have a good chance of being mugged. You had your car broken into right here in this parking lot. Why? Because of the fact that there's a chance of, we're in an area that has that kind of problem. So, what are you going to do? Yeah, there's really nothing you can do, unfortunately, about it. So, but let's hope that the victims all survive and that they did catch the perpetrator, and hopefully we'll find out why. I don't care whether they're a Trump supporter, a Hillary supporter, or a Michigan supporter, or any of these kind of situations, no matter who they are, they're a little crazy in the head. So that's all I know. And again, watch how you're being manipulated by the news, because you are. There was a story, let me see if I can bring this one up. I hate this site because of all the ads, but pro-Castro Kaepernick gets booed and then destroyed by dolphins. Good. So this girl, bisexual chick says Trump supporter sent her anti-gay slurs. So she had this, she did this thing, she promoted, her name's Taylor Volk. She told the news affiliate that she found one of her notes taped to her door at her off-campus residence, which read "Back to Hell" and #Trump with other homophobic slurs. And she's basically said, this is a countrywide epidemic all of a sudden. I just want them to stop. She had also posted pictures of notes and homophobic slurs on her Facebook account, NBC reported. The university investigated the alleged harassment and determined this week that Mrs. Volk had fabricated the whole story. She had made all these things up. So again, we have to be careful what is said. So one, sadly, the second message in particular was promoted by the incident of intolerance that occurred at the students' off-campus residence. I'm writing today, this is from the police, to notify our community this incident has been fully investigated and resolved. Sadly, we discovered the incident and related messages were fabricated. The individual responsible for the incident is not continuing as a student at North Park. That's where North Park College. We are confident there is no further threat of repeated intolerance to any member of the campus community stemming from the recent incident. So it just goes to show you, again, you can't believe everything you read on the internet. You can't believe everything that you even hear in the news. Did any of you guys hear about the recount that they're wanting to do? Yes. So the Electoral College, so Hillary's challenges voting results. However, if I remember my history correctly, let's see, who did this as well? In the 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush, Al Gore gave the win, basically conceded victory to George W. Bush. But then when they found that Florida was a little closer than they thought, he demanded a recount. Well, one of the rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court said, you have already withdrawn from the election by basically declaring your conceding victory to the other person. That is a declaration. That is saying you have given up. You can then no longer appeal. So one of the things is Hillary, and I believe that this is what she's doing, is the lady from the Green Party is actually challenging the votes. This lady by the name of Jill Stein, she's the Green Party candidate. She's appealing the accounts in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and there was one other state that Trump won, hoping that the removal of those electoral votes will actually then give Hillary the victory. Now, people think that Hillary, of course, sending her team to help with the recount, and this lady has already raised millions of dollars to help fund this recount. Where do you think that millions of dollars came from? Any guesses?
Hillary.
Probably Hillary supporters, because there's no way the Green Party raises millions of dollars to do a recount. But I would not be surprised if you're seeing these supporters come out are going to be tied to the Hillary camp. So, the thing is even Bernie Sanders is kind of supporting this. So it'll be interesting to see how this recount goes. The other thing that came out is, of course, Trump believes that millions of illegals voted. So if that's the case, then this 2 million vote lead that Hillary has might not be that. Because think about it, if 2 million, there's estimated about 2 million illegals voted in this election. So you throw those out, and then Trump wins the popular vote then as well. So, and of course we have to figure out how many of the dead voted in Illinois, because that's popular in Illinois. When JFK won, actually in Illinois, there was some districts had more votes counted than actual voters. But of course, yeah, they were actually dead people voting in the Chicago area. Well, what they do is they actually go in, and it was actually tied to, they believe, the mafia in the Chicago area would go in and just stuff the ballot box with, go to the cemetery, write down all the names and cast in the votes. Yeah.
Don't you have to like show your ID?
Not back then.
Oh.
Well, think about this, this was 1960? 1960 election? I think it was the 60 election. So.
The Democrats are the ones that push for no.
Correct. Why do you think that the Democrats don't want a voter ID to be able to vote? Why do you think the Democrats like early voting?
So the illegals can vote.
Well, because then what you can do is actually with early voting, you start going and having your people go to the Summit County one, vote there, but you can only go to the areas that are controlled by the Democrats, because of course you can't go to a Republican area, they're not gonna let you vote, they're gonna question it. The other thing is like, so what you would typically do is, it also gives you an opportunity to get more of the vote out. So you can go into neighborhoods that you know are favoring you and bust them all down to the election office and have them cast votes. You can make sure they have everything they need to cast votes. So it's one of those things that makes it a lot harder, which is again why I think the election day should be a national holiday and everybody's off work, and guess what? If you're voting age and you're informed, I always put that in there. If you're informed, then you should vote. If you're not informed, then don't vote. So that's kind of how I feel. So, anything else in the news you guys saw over we were gone for a week.
We were
Yes.
at my grandma's house, she's a Democrat, and they almost always have Democratic news on. Either that or evolution and science.
Right.
That's usually what it is. And they were going on and on about this Trump supporter who started chanting for Trump and trying to claim something to that extent. And they were bringing people on who were just so upset. It's like they kept going on and on with that, instead of talking about how Israel is on fire right now.
Oh yeah, they don't want to talk about real news. They're all upset about this, the poor snowflakes. Just do me a favor. Don't grow up to be snowflakes. Okay?
I don't think that's possible.
Have some intelligence. This is why I tell you when you come into this class, I don't care how you feel. I care about what you think. Because you know what? One of the days I'm gonna do probably last week in class. I will do my manipulation test on you. I will show you how I can manipulate you to feel a certain way. Especially when if I just had some good background music when I talk. Really helpful too. So, yes. One of the things that I'd like you guys to pay attention to, especially with all this stuff, is how often we are manipulated by the media. They did a study, this was a number of years ago. They did a study. What form of communication is it easier to lie to people in? Now this was before the internet. They found the newspaper was actually the hardest to lie, because when people read, they tend to think. The second hardest one to lie in is the radio. The easiest one to lie to you on is the television. That's why, of course, people call it the boob tube, because you turn into a real boob when, a real dummy when you're because you turn off, because you're being visually stimulated, you turn off your mind. in many respects. So you don't engage, you're not engaging the parts of your brain that actually let you think. That's why men sit in front of the TV and go, just continue to click through the remote control, right? Because we learned about this the other day. We're in our nothing box too, and that is awesome. Nothing's going on up there.
And my wife's just like, dear, will you take the dog for a walk? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
2 hours later, dear, will you take the dog for a walk? Why?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's. The other thing I heard about the election, of course, was that they're accusing the voting results is that the Russians hacked the Wisconsin and Pennsylvania voting, and that's why Trump won.
Wait, say that again.
The Russians hacked the voting systems in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and that's why Trump won.
Can we just
It's not
over.
It's not over until it's over. So here's the thing, Wisconsin is now under a recount, which means they're supposed to have their electoral vote certified by, I think it's December 13th. They will not be able to meet that deadline, which then means that Trump will not get those electoral votes. But that's okay, he's got way more than he needs. He doesn't need all of Wisconsin.
Doesn't he now have like the?
He's got 300 and some.
Or something?
So the few that he would lose, what they really need is for him to lose Pennsylvania and also,
Michigan?
Michigan would be, if he loses Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin together,
Right.
would put him below the 370, which would then not give him enough to win the election. Problem is Republicans control the House of Representatives, they could actually then just vote him in, because if you remember your Constitution, that after the Electoral College, it then goes to the House of Representatives. So, could be interesting in that sense, yes.
Israel's has a lot of fires going on right now, and even the Palestinians are helping them put it out.
Well, that's good.
It's really bad. The media's not talking about it.
Yeah, no, I know, I don't see anything in here on that one,
I haven't deleted.
but that doesn't mean anything. So, there's a lot in here on, of course, the Trump. Washington Post promotes McCarthyism blacklist from new hidden and very shady group. Drudge turns red. Ron Paul warning. Texas governor says will ban sanctuary cities. See, there they go.
Wait, Drudge turns red?
Yeah.
What's that supposed to mean?
Probably meaning that they're banning Drudge from being, one of the places where they go to. Did you hear about Google? Trump Tower and Trump International their names were changed on the Google Maps to Dump
Oh, yes, I did.
Hotel and Dump International.
You're kidding.
Nope. They apologized to him for it and fixed it. So, of course, even worse news, Black Friday store sales fall. They didn't go up.
That's the only reason.
I have never been Black Friday.
Me neither.
Birthday shopping.
Anybody go Black Friday shopping?
My
Anybody
brothers
know
did on
anybody goes?
Thanksgiving. They ditched me and left me with my family, which
I'm
sounds
so
really
scared of
weird,
it,
but
because so many people get hurt.
my
I
brother fell and almost killed this little girl. Didn't actually, but like he almost fell on her.
Who's he?
It's really funny.
Your brother?
I am not a big fan of the Black Friday stuff.
We went to Dick's last year, and that wasn't a very good idea.
No, we used to go to like Best Buy to get some like the DVDs and CDs that they'd have on special for that day and stuff like that. And we got to the point where it's like, my goodness, it's just not worth it for the $2 extra you get off by coming in and then standing in line for 2 hours.
$10 boots that are really like $90.
You got $10
No, my
boots?
cousin.
Oh,
I'm sure.
One of our friends said she shopped for, I think, 7 hours.
That is
Yeah, my friends shop from like 6 to 4.
The Weavers had to work at Target.
Yeah,
during
I saw
Black
that.
Friday.
Apparently it was awful.
Oh my goodness.
I bet it was. One of my wife's family cousins, he works at Home Depot, and he said he was like, it's gonna be brutal. Luckily, he didn't have to be, he wasn't the opening shift. He had to go in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which probably means that he had to clean.
Yeah.
So poor guy. But the other thing that happens on Black Fridays is a lot of store merchandise gets stolen too. Because there's so many people that you can sneak out with things. And he said it's really bad. And I guess their store policy is you don't confront the people and stuff like that. So they just walk right out with this stuff. It's like, I'll confront them, I'll shoot him. No, I'm just kidding. Physicists claim time travel is possible. So it is possible for you to go back. There's a fantasy story where the guy goes from the future, goes back into the past, finds out that he's actually his own grandparent.
Wait, what?
What?
Whoa, back up. That's so much weight. What? No,
Yeah. He goes back in time, and when he's in time, he falls in love with somebody, he doesn't realize who it is, turns out to be his grandmother.
Ew! That's so messed up.
That's a modern Opus Rex.
That's so ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's-
thought that's where you were going with that.
Yeah.
It's like,
weird.
Back to the Future?
No, it was the one where she got struck by lightning or something in the car.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Agent Madeline?
Yes, yeah.
It
So,
was like that. That's so weird.
Yeah,
so
that was
I guess
it was good.
in, they were joking around about the new Battlefield game, Battlefield 1. It's a World War I game, so you can actually fly biplanes and stuff like that. It looks kind of cool. And the joke going around on some of the blogs is, who's protecting the Hitler baby? And it's like, Hitler wasn't a baby during World War I. Hitler was actually served in World War I. So but that would be an interesting, if you play, sometimes like the Battlefield or like, I enjoy the original Call of Duty games, not so much the newer ones. And because the historical references to World War II, and in there you play as from actual military units that were during that time, and you go through some of the things that they had to go through in some of the battles. So wouldn't it be interesting if Battlefield 1 did something where you're actually serving alongside a young Hitler, if you're playing the German side? Like, okay. But, there are a lot of, when we get in, of course, World War I, World War II, in World War I really helped set the stage for a lot of our generals for World War II. Patton served in World War I. Eisenhower served in World War I. So a lot of, MacArthur served in World War I. So there were a lot of these guys that served during that time period that got them ready to be generals and leaders during World War II. So, okay. So now on to actual study stuff. Sorry. Need to ruin your day, but
It's okay. I got it all set.
I really don't care whether I ruin your day or not.
I got my notes set up.
So, chapter 11, which is the growth of American society, which is kind of more of an informational chapter in many things. Of course, one of the things that you will start seeing now in this time period is the ingenuity that comes out of a totally free society. And the problem that we have in many respects today is that we stifle actual ingenuity, except for when it comes to the internet. Because you can be as creative as you want on the internet. So there is this boom of things. Think about it. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace, come and gone. Apple and what it's able to do. Amazon. I mean, I did some shopping on Black Friday on Amazon. I'm having it shipped to my house this week. Woo-hoo! I didn't have to go anywhere. And I got Prime, so it's free shipping. Yes.
My sister didn't want our presents from her shipped to our house because nobody else would open it, like all my friends. Just she had it shipped to my grandma's.
Oh, that's a good idea. So, you know, there's a lot of things that, close. Let's see. When you're in these things, that's just should not come up. It's one thing that drives me nuts about Apple. So, during this time, you have some great inventions coming around, especially when you look at in textiles. The first, which would we consider America's first major industry. Of course, back then we were a agriculturally based society. So everything that we did was geared around that. So you have textiles. And then you have, of course, Eli Whitney. Remember, during this time, before this time, everything was custom made. So if you wanted a spoon, you wanted a fork, you went to the silversmith, Paul Revere, and you had Paul Revere make you a fork or a silver fork or silver knife, or you'd make a silver set. So there would be some variations a little bit in that stuff because it was handmade. Well, Eli Whitney comes out with the idea of, hey, let's build something that has interchangeable parts. Now, this revolutionizes war, because now when you put a gun together and your gun breaks in the middle of the battlefield because this breaks, but your buddy's gun breaks a different way, you could take parts from your buddy's gun and you can make a working gun. Before that, you might not be able to do it because the musket was custom made. So your trigger may not fit in his musket, or his pieces might not fit quite right in your musket because it was custom. They were custom made. Now, of course, today's we love to go and get custom made stuff. It's all the rage. Look at that. It's custom made. Yeah. But there is something to be said for interchangeable parts. And what that leads to next is manufacturing and assembly line, which we will learn about later with Ford. I mean, think about this. How much would this table cost if somebody had to make it by hand? A lot. But if we can mass produce this, and one guy who, let's say, maybe take him a week to build that table can now do 20 tables in a day. Just one person. Productivity goes way, way up. And that's why in the United States, we're able to pay salaries that's much higher than those of other countries. Because another country doesn't have a factory that can build this table or like this table. Or other, well, I mean, there are other countries like, the industrial countries, China, some places in Europe, the United States, some places in Mexico. They're becoming industrialized enough where they can do this. You go to places like India, where they're not quite as industrialized yet. They can't build these things like they can in China or in the United States, in these industrial countries, because of the ability to mass produce. And of course, these kinds of ideas came out of the United States. These ideas came out of this thing of a free society. One of the things that you will find when you look at other cultures, the thing about the United States is we are one of the most creative countries in the world. Japan is not. But Japan does something that Americans don't like. Japan thinks long term. So what does Japan do? We invent a new product. Japan gets a hold of it. Japan goes, we can make this better. let's do this. Think of the automobile, United States. Took the automobile, created the assembly line, made it amazing. And then during the 50s and 60s and 70s, the American car kind of plateaued. It didn't change. What happened? Japanese started getting into the auto manufacturing. All of a sudden, the quality between the American car and the Japanese are like, hey, we can make this thing better. They are amazing at taking a product and making it better. Now, we've learned to do that from them, but that's what they do well. That's why if you go to, there's a book that I read a number of years ago. Oh my goodness, must have been like 10 years ago. In Japan, they have one of the large companies there. The CEO has a scoreboard on his in his office, and it's like the Japanese are like have 1 or 2, and the Americans have over 100. I don't remember the exact numbers anymore. And so this American guy was visiting, and he saw that, and he goes, was that like the last score of the last basketball game between the U.S. and Japan? And the Japanese goes, oh no, I wouldn't put that up if that was that score. I wouldn't worry about it. It's even worse. He said, worse than getting trounced at basketball? He said, yeah, that's the number of Nobel Peace Prize winners in science that America has versus the ones that Japan has. And that concerned this CEO. Or here in the United States, you look at what we're able to do with, starting back here is where we start setting the stage for, anybody here seen History Channel's Men Who Made America? If you get a chance, I watch it. It's an amazing story of the Commodore Vanderbilt and how he built his empire, and Rockefeller, who's from the Ohio area, and what he did with oil, and actually started out with gasoline, but creating the Standard Oil Company. Those guys build upon their success. Starts with what these guys are doing here, and it starts building and we become better and bigger and stronger and more of a dominant country than any other one, and it starts here. Some notes, of course, John Deere. We all know they still make tractors today. McCormick in his reaping machine, and then Eli Whitney, the cotton gin. The one thing about Eli Whitney, inventions and technology have consequences. And I'm sure this is not what Eli Whitney was wanting. But the cotton gin made the cotton production so profitable that it actually probably is one of the instruments that prolonged slavery. Just because of the fact that now a landowner with the slaves could use the cotton gin and get more yield out of his acreage than what he had before. So the value of having slaves was even that much higher. And probably, like I said, continued the prolonging of slavery. Transportation during this time period. You have the buildup of the rivers, the roads, the canals, which of course one of those canals goes right here through Akron. Why does it go through Akron? Why does the canal go right through here? What's significant about Akron?
Rubber.
No, not at the time.
The canal.
The canal, but what about Akron makes it so important?
I know it.
Does that mean you look here?
Well, yes, it does have to do with Lake Erie.
Like it went through Lake Erie.
It goes from Lake Erie down to the Ohio. This is something that most people don't know. The reason being is Akron, Ohio that's why we're called Summit County, because we're the high point. We are the high point. So you build up to Akron from Lake Erie with the locks, and then you build down from Akron, and we had the Portage Lakes, we had Summit Lake, so we had all these great lakes that could feed the canal from here, from Akron. So we could actually create those, power the locks and stuff from using those lakes. The one problem with the canals, they didn't last as long as we hoped because of trains and the railroad. The railroad industry boomed. You have sea transportation, and this is where Commodore, which is what he was nicknamed, Cornelius Vanderbilt, gets his start, is actually in sea transportation. And then he sells all that and actually gets involved in the railroad industry. And he controls some of the, a lot of the trade routes into New York from surrounding communities. And then, of course, you have communication. And we have Samuel F.B. Morse. What did he invent?
Morse code.
Morse code, that's right. It's
Easy
named
to
after him.
remember.
Huh? Easy to remember, that's right. So he revolutionized communication. Do you know computers today still use a form of Morse code? I mean, really? What is binary? You guys ever see binary? It's zeros and ones, dashes and dots. That's really all computer code is zeros and ones. Lots of them, but that's what that you take a byte. In fact, one year it was kind of funny. We did a birthday message to the kid who, he's 30. The guy who works for me. We did a birthday message to him in binary, and he is so sharp, so smart. He actually could figure out what it said, because he'd go through and calculate all the codes and write out and figure out what the message was. Basically said happy birthday and blah, something else. We wanted to make it a little hard, but we filled up this entire 8-foot whiteboard with zeros and ones, and they're in 8. Computer code is typically you have different, right now you hear about 32-bit, 64-bit. 64 bits means it can do 8-bit at a time. And typically what you have is you have each letter or symbol is like Morse code. You have like 4, I think it's, or 6, I can't remember Morse code. So it's dashes and dots make a letter. Well, in this, you have the combinations of zeros and ones make up your computer language. So that's how that all works. And during this time, you have education. You have Horace Mann, who, of course, we don't hear as much from. We hear more of like Dewey and those guys, but Horace Mann and Unitarianism, wrong motive behind the public education. His ideas were not biblical. He thought they were, but they were not. Believed people could find deliverance from ignorance and social problems through sound moral education. And it kind of excluded the idea of, he thought education was the key to any success, and he left off the spiritual side of things. And that's what basically his ideas is what we have today in many public schools here in the United States, is we only look at the mind and not everything else. Also, one of the things you're going to want to know is the utopian reformers. We can never have utopia. Only utopia will happen when Christ himself comes. And then American religion. We end up with the Second Great Awakening. The First Great Awakening led to the revolution and the forming of this country. The Second Great Awakening, I believe, leads us to the end of slavery in the United States. Now, it takes a long time before it happens, but this is the start. This is laying the foundations for what will happen in the end of slavery. And one of the big, of course, people for pushing this through, the Methodists and John Wesley and Francis Ashbury. There was a big push during this time to get Bibles into the hands of people because most people didn't have Bibles, so they wanted to get all this information, get the stuff to people as they needed it. Okay, that's it for this chapter. Coming up, yes.
Can you go back to the other side real quick?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
So coming up is test number 3, which will cover chapters 9 and 11.
Only 9 and 11.
9 through 11.
9 through 11, yes,
Okay,
9 through 11,
10,
sorry.
11. That was
9, 10, and 11.
Hockey also.
Yeah, well, actually,
You skip like,
if you do 9, if we only did 2 chapters, you'd probably find that the material would be harder.
Yeah.
But the more you cover, the more I only can hit the highlights and the questions, the important stuff. So,
Okay, wait, I have a question.
yes.
So I was confused when I was reading this. Like, what exactly was a utopian reformer?
Yeah, I was.
Because, like, I get that they. I
Utopian
get parts
reformers.
of it, but like, I don't. understand it.
Okay, most reformers focused on single major problems in society, such as prison reform or alcohol, and aimed at eliminating the problems throughout society. Utopian reformers, on the other hand, sought to establish small, perfect communities that would serve as models for the reform of society at large. Utopia. Okay, so what they would do is they would create these societies that people would go to that would be so good, you know, and everybody would live together in peace and harmony and sing Kumbaya and that sort of thing, which doesn't happen. So they were forming a lot of these things, and there was a lot of belief that through these reforms, they could generate the perfect society. We still do that today. I mean, everybody, this is why a lot of people are so upset about Trump winning, because they thought Hillary could continue us on this progressive movement to make us better, that we could evolve into some great society. The one problem with utopianism is it forgets the fact that Christians and people and everybody are sinners. And so ultimately all they do is want to have that we only want our way and not somebody else's way. We're basically selfish. And so in the reform, the utopian reformers, what they basically believed is that they could create a utopia. That they would create this utopian society, and everybody would see how it worked, and everybody would go, oh, this is great, this will work. And oh, everybody should adopt it. Everybody should share equally. Well, when you share equally out of everything, you end up sharing misery. It's the only common denominator that everybody can have. You cannot share prosperity. Prosperity is something that must be earned. Get that through your heads. Prosperity is something you have to earn. It cannot be shared. Because what happens is people like Hillary Clinton claim that the rich have taken from those who are poor to become rich. And see, this is a bad economic view of what we would call the American pie. See, the problem is everybody thinks that wealth is this finite thing. And if we could say it is, let's say the total amount of wealth in the United States is $100. Okay, so if we're equal here amongst you, well, there's 5 of you. So each of you should then get $20. Well, what happens if one of you works harder than the other and you still get the same amount as everybody else? You're going to start going, well, gee, I'm not going to work as hard anymore because I got the same as this guy. That's the problem with the utopian society, is it just doesn't work because it doesn't. Utopianism requires you to be everybody to be perfect and good and put everybody else first and not have any, it's like, yeah, you guys, anybody watch Star Trek, like The Next Generation or any of those? Okay, those are kind of like utopian societies. We've done away with greed, we've done away with it, because everybody has this, because we have this cool thing called replicators, and we can make whatever we want. And we can beam ourselves wherever we want. Can you imagine that? You're got a relative you don't like? Gee, they can beam over anytime they want. No, thank you. I want shields around my house. Because there's several relatives I'd rather not have come over.
Okay, wait, so it was just like one, like, was it just one big community?
No.
Or like little ones?
There were little ones, a lot of different little ones
Okay.
around. So it
I was
wasn't
just like
one big.
picturing this one little town, it was like, oh, perfect.
No. There were a lot of different little ones, and you know the thing about utopianism is they show up all the time. A lot of them, there's a number of them that show up that are Christian. You run into these Christian cults. Jonestown, which is something that happens, that they tried to develop this perfect society, and they got behind this crazy whack guy who was their spiritual leader, and they all ended up drinking Kool-Aid and killing themselves. That's where it comes up with the whole thing of drinking the Kool-Aid comes from, is that you...
That came from somewhere.
Yes, that actually came from somewhere. So that kind of gives you an idea on that. Essay questions.
I know the first question.
Right. Discuss the 3 important court cases that the Marshall Plan. That's worth 9 points. Second one is discuss the 3 stages in Britain's plan to defeat the United States during the War of 1812.
What does it mean comment on it? Like,
Well, basically, was it successful or not successful? Well, yes, remember, the first plan to come down and divide the states in 2 was not successful. They were stopped at the one battle.
okay.
The second phase, which was for them to amphibious assaults along the coast and raid cities, that was successful. They ended up burning Washington, but overall, it really wasn't a big enough success to overturn the results of the war. And then, of course, the third one was to go into the Battle of New Orleans, which they ended up losing, which was funny because it actually happened after the war was over, and they ended up not. Then the other one is the 2 basic principles of the Monroe Doctrine, which, if we look at this, here's those 3 court cases. I will send you guys all this so you'll have it. John Marshall in the Supreme Court, Marbury versus Madison, which was judicial review, Gibbons versus Ogden, which established delegated powers, and McCulloch versus Maryland, which established implied powers. Then the one that I really wanted to cover just briefly is the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was a U.S. foreign policy regarding Latin America countries in 1823. Of course, it was formed by who? Who came up with the Monroe Doctrine?
Oh, I know. What's his name?
James Monroe.
I was John.
John Monroe.
I don't know, guys.
John, I think it's in Madison. John Madison, James Monroe.
Okay.
Okay. So what he was trying to stop here is the European nations were trying to colonize and influence things going on in Latin America. So the U.S. said, listen, you're done. No more. We will go to war with you. So by basically, that's what they're saying, this would be viewed as acts of aggression, and the U.S. would intervene. And the United States would not interfere in existing European colonies. So if they had an established colony, they wouldn't bother it. But then what they would do is, nor would they meddle in the concerns of Europe. So this lasts until basically World War I. Then we decide to get involved in World War I. Also, Roosevelt adds a kind of an addition to this, and there's also one of the things that comes out from the terrorist attacks on 9/11 is something we call the Bush Doctrine, which we will get into at a later date. So those are kind of the 3 big foreign policy ones is Monroe Doctrine, Roosevelt Corollary, which adds to the Roosevelt Doctrine, and or the Monroe Doctrine, and then the Bush Doctrine, which kind of adds on to both of those as well. So that's it. Any questions? I'll send you guys out the what you need to know document and the test review, so you know. Again, open book, and correct. Also, just a hint, you might want to understand what a tariff is and whether it's effective or not, and who it protects and so forth. Might be like a bonus question with that one. Okay, that's it.
Bye.
Bye, Devin. See you later.
See ya.
Thank you.
Yep, see you later.